going to talk about the setting today. So when you go to certain places, you expect to find certain things. Like for example, if I were to say that you were to go into the kitchen in a restaurant, what would you find there? Pots and pans.
Stove.
Stove, cooking.
Sink. Refrigerator.
Okay, refrigerator.
Might find some food.
Might find some food. Okay.
Table.
Someone washing the dishes maybe. What about a Boy Scout camping trip? What would you expect to find there?
Tents.
Campfire,
Campfire.
Blue suits.
all those pots
Lots
and
of
pans
awards
that
on
we
them.
can use.
Right? Lots of awards.
The woods,
And ice.
What would the atmosphere be like?
camaraderie.
Quiet.
Okay.
Or noisy. Telling ghost stories. Near a river.
Telling ghost stories near a river. Bugs.
Yes,
Oh, fireflies.
I remember.
Fireflies.
Nobles burning down the national forest.
They did, didn't they?
No, up at our
The
place.
fireflies?
Long time ago.
Fireflies.
One of my dad's stories about posting the Boy Scouts. Their light fires 20 feet from the edge of the actual national forest.
Wow. What about
Merit badges.
merit badges? Right. What about at a book club? What do you expect to see there?
Books. People sat around like this, talking the stories, questioning the
Fireplace.
moderator.
Okay.
Some people with glasses.
And then we can have wine. That's right. Fireplace.
Okay.
Chairs, couch, ladies.
Farmers market.
The grove.
Vegetables.
All kinds of vegetables. Stalls, tents. Flowers.
We would go
Flowers.
something like the farmers market in Mexico City. It's called the Central de Abastos. And I remember specifically the smell of the parking lot there. It's one of those smells that are stuck in my head for
Good smell?
no.
Animal smells.
That's Mexico.
Rotting food smell.
Oh, here we go.
What about a different country? What about if we went to Greenland? What would you expect to find in Greenland?
Lights.
Polar bears. Northern lights.
Little Lights?
Yeah.
What language would they speak there?
Greenlandish. They speak outlandish.
It's actually on my bucket list to go to Greenland sometime before I die. There's no direct flight there that I've found. Gotta find some way over there.
Not speak English.
Go to flight of Reykjavik, public flight.
Norway, obviously.
Okay,
Ice crushers.
Reykjavik is nice.
ice crushers. Okay, so what about if you were to picture a place where you haven't been? Like, for example, I don't know if you have or haven't been to a nuclear power plant. What would you expect to go to find in there? Radiation, okay.
Metal.
Those buildings that are on
Tubing.
top that are mirror looking.
Okay.
Sí, por favor. ¿Cuál quieres?
Stacks.
¿Del pechuga o
Okay.
de la? Y poquito ensalada.
The stacks, right? With the whatever that comes out of there. What would the interior be like?
The radiation pools, the pools are holding the rods,
Okay,
Clean and white.
clean and white.
computers that regulate the rods.
Okay. What about a prisoner of war camp, a POW camp? What would that be like?
Even worse. Cinder block. Gray.
Gray.
No bed.
Hanoi Hills.
Barbed wire.
That's it, Mark.
No light.
Guys with guns, barbed wire tied. Maria
Ours
Harris
with
was
the,
sleeping
I want to say cops, but they're not. The
The
guard.
guards watching? Okay.
And Jane Fonda.
Spotlights at nighttime.
Okay.
And Jane Fonda.
Jane Fonda. What prisoner camp are you in? Which
She
one?
was in a prisoner war camp, Vietnam.
Oh, right.
She went down and shook the guy's hands.
That's right.
And one of them gave her a little note to bring back, and she turned it over to the guards, and he got beat up a couple of weeks.
For that taking it from
Bad person.
bad.
Okay, so I guess what I'm getting at here is that depending on the location where you are, you kind of expect to have a setting, particular setting. I could switch around a bit. For example, if I were to make the description, you tell me what it is. I'm not going to go into too much description of this because you're eating, but there's keys, and the key is tied to something. If it's something small, you know the place is relatively clean. But if it's like a plunger or something bigger than that, exactly, a bathroom in a gas station, yeah. Or another example would be many children making noise and
Playground?
balls,
Playground.
playground, schoolyard, exactly.
Thomas Aquinas College family. Doing too much fun.
How about there's seats, there's a fish tank, there's a coffee table with magazines on it,
Living room.
Doctor's office.
doctor's office, tension in the room, nobody's speaking because they're scared. Okay, so you kind of get where I'm getting at. I'm going to flip it around now. And what was your first experience? The first time you walked into an extraordinary form mass? What were your experiences?
Scared.
Scared?
In awe.
Delight.
Light?
Delight. I was happy.
Oh,
I was home.
Reverence.
Reverence. What did you say before that?
Awe.
Ah.
Humble.
A gesture greets, knocking me on the head and says, quiet.
How do I write that?
50 years ago that happened.
What were you doing that merited?
Talking with a guy next to me in school. Quiet.
What else?
Unfamiliar.
Unfamiliar.
A long time ago. Can't remember, so just not unfamiliar.
Okay. What else?
Holy.
Holy?
To
What's
me
that?
was like that.
Nuns. Nuns with rulers,
They're
smacking people.
pointers, and would sneak up behind you if you were slouching.
I saw a church, I can't remember where it was, but it had catwalks for the nuns to walk around. And they would watch the children below, and then they'd get in trouble after a mass. Can't remember where that was.
Yeah, it was.
Germany.
No, it wasn't in Germany. What else? I only have a few things on the board. What else did you experience the first time you went to a Latin mass?
You're in heaven.
The smells.
Heaven? Smells?
Yeah.
The ancient.
The candles.
Incense.
The altar boys.
Altar boys.
From the 5th grade.
The
What
respect.
did you say?
The feeling of like I'm in the heaven.
Heaven.
And
The beauty.
the beauty is
Beauty.
extravagant.
Extraordinary. What else? That wraps it up.
Solemnity.
Solemnity.
Well, it's kind of like silence, but then you hear the rustling of their caskets as they move back and forth. Are you talking about actually the beginning of it, or are you actually talking about being in the mass?
Talking about your experience when you walked in there, what
In
was
the
it
church
like
the first
you
time.
were like?
Got it.
Confused.
Confused?
You didn't hear them cross-eyed.
I was crying
Crying? I'm not going to put that down.
from the holiness.
Okay. Holiness. So what do we got on here? We've got
Some fear.
fear,
He's got
I thought that was at the top, no?
The presence of Christ.
presence of Christ.
the music.
What about the music?
So solemn.
It was beautiful. Heaven was so.
Okay, how can we summarize all this?
Processions.
What was that?
Short.
Sorry, procession. The processions.
Processions? Okay. No, I'm just talking about the first time you went, the first mass you went to. What was your experience? Not so much describing the mass, but like when you went in there the first time.
The darkness.
I go back to the
Darkness?
Yeah, because that school was all dark.
It's all dark.
Yeah.
Okay.
Different
See,
candles
Irene
and
and I go
alcoves.
familiar. It was familiar to us.
It's familiar with you?
Yeah, it was delightful and familiar. It wasn't unfamiliar.
Hmm.
We knew it.
But that was because you knew it from before.
We knew we
Yeah.
were little.
Well,
The first
Talking
time,
about the first time.
The first time.
When Irene was little, I
When
don't
it-
remember that one.
Not
Stained
that
glass.
little.
The stained glass windows.
First time was
Okay.
first grade. We had to go to mass.
Had to go to mass.
Yeah.
Had to go to mass. Okay.
Start with now.
What do we got on the board here? We've got.
You didn't get there yet.
I think that most people would be unfamiliar. You say it's familiar for you.
Yeah,
But-
weird.
I think the majority of the people it would be they don't know what's going on.
That's right.
Unfamiliar. So that would be one I would put down here. Confused. But then we could also say it was beautiful, heavenly. Reverence, silence, delight. I think silence is a big one for people when they first come in. They're trying to find their place in the missal, and the silence gets to them. I don't know, is it or not really?
Fidgeting.
Fidgeting. Candles, beauty, solemnity. What's that?
Beautiful vestments.
Vestments?
The lace on the beautiful lace. The altar cloths.
Okay. So, we're kind of struck with the awe. Struck with the awe of the vestments and everything. Unfamiliar, confused, reverence. Put that on here.
Does it help to say anticipation that something wonderful is going to happen, but you don't have a clue what it is? How would you
Yeah, I
say
like
that
that.
one word? Yeah, but how would you say it? There's an anticipation of something
Something's
wonderful,
happening.
and it's beautiful because everything is beautiful and sparkling and gorgeous.
Expectation.
That something wonderful is going to happen.
I think anticipation is good.
Of something special.
Something special gonna happen.
Yeah.
Okay. So, based on everything that you've got on the board, and you're not allowed to respond mass, what is it that's going on? So, okay, I gave you the scenario and you said doctor's office. I gave you the scenario and you said gas station bathroom. If I give you this scenario, what's going on?
The presence of God.
Presence of God. Okay.
Worship.
Ceremony.
Worship, ceremony.
That's what's going on.
Okay. You're worshiping God, ceremony in the presence of God.
A transformation of some sort. I don't know what
Transformation
sort.
of some sort. Okay. I'm not going to clear the board and rewrite everything, but I'll just throw out this one question. If you were to go to a Protestant service, would you put all these descriptions on there, or would it be different?
Different. Theater?
Different?
No.
Different.
Theater. Or
Theater?
just call it
Different.
Yeah, it's like a room just singing and
Just singing and stuff? Okay.
clapping and
Definitely.
there's nothing there.
Yeah.
One more
Actually.
thing that should go on there is
I
sense
saw a
of
movie.
peace.
It's only like
Peace. Big one.
Sense of peace. Peace.
Episcopalians are pretty good.
Okay.
Oh, they're fabulous.
There are certain things that God has given us in our lifetime that we use to get to heaven, actually. One of them is time, one of them is friendship. One of the big ones that He gives us is the phenomena of signs. And we use signs a lot. We use signs for a lot of things. It's part of our essence, who we are. It's the way we communicate. So a sign can be natural, or it can be, what's the word I'm looking for? Sheet, look at my notes. It can be natural, or it can be artificial. A natural sign would be something like the smoke. You see smoke, and you know there's a fire somewhere, or someone's smoking. Or another natural sign would be tears. You see someone crying, and you know that either they are extremely happy, but they're probably not extremely happy. They're probably really sad. That's a natural sign. So if you see the sign, you know there's a relationship to that. There's something going on. And this is so universal that if you smoke a beehive, all the bees go in and they eat all their honey because they think there's a fire outside and they've got to stock up on fuel so that they can fly away. Or if there's certain conditions in the weather, the animals realize that some act of God is going to happen and they've got to get ready to flee. Those are natural signs. Artificial signs are signs that we make up to mean something else. So I was at a party once, and this husband and wife decided that they were going to tell the future. And so the one of them stayed before, and then whatever, and then the other one came back in, and they wowed us all with their stuff. But what they had done is they had grouped beforehand and said, when I do this, it means this, and then you say this. And it was just all a bunch of signs that they had made between themselves so that the other person knew how to interpret what the other person was saying. Other signs would be traffic signs. There's nothing on a stop sign that's going to stop your car unless you crash into it. But you know that if you don't stop, the camera's going to take your picture.
Universal signs.
Universal signs. Language is a sign.
What about supernatural?
What was that?
What about supernatural signs?
We're getting there.
Okay.
There are supernatural signs. So, language is a sign. The sounds that I make with my mouth are joined together to make words, and that is a way for me to transcribe my thoughts that are in my head so that they can become thoughts in your head. So the sound comes out of my mouth, it travels through the air, making waves, goes into your ears, and it's translated into the same thoughts that are in my head once it gets into your head. Those are words. They're signs. They're artificially made up so that not everybody in the world understands what I'm saying. Other people have different languages, and their signs are made up according to their way of interpreting. But then we also have squiggly lines, like are on the board. And those squiggly lines are interpreted to mean the sounds that we say, so that you can write down what's in your head. And someone who can't hear you at the moment can come back later and interpret what these squiggly lines mean to mean the words that you were thinking in your head when you wrote them. This is all signs. God uses signs for grace so that we know when we receive certain graces, and these are the sacraments. If you have water doused on you and certain words are said by someone appointed by God, you are baptized, and you know that you were baptized because you got water poured on your head and certain words said by the certain person. And we can go through all the sacraments. We can also go through the sacramentals. If I pray this particular prayer, I am giving worship to our Blessed Mother, and so on. There are certain signs that God uses in the liturgy. Now, okay, so a sign that you don't know what the sign means, but that has a meaning, that's a mystery. And then once you learn what the meaning is, the mystery is solved. But what if there are layers of mystery? So what we get at Mass are an ambience, a situation where you realize something is going on. You realize that something very special is happening here. And if I were to tell you that a sacrifice was being offered to God in an unbloody manner by the second person of the Blessed Trinity before you ever went to Mass, and I were to ask you just the same way as I asked you what it would be like in a nuclear power plant, you probably would have come up with something very similar to what's on the board right now. You probably would have described it as awesome, as mysterious, as unfamiliar, or confused, or beauty, or solemnity, or vestments. You probably would have described it in that way. Us going to Mass and then being able to describe it in this way shows that God has wrapped the Mass in a form of communication to us to kind of show us what's going on, so that we get there and we realize, okay, I've never seen anything like this before in my life, and I know something very special is happening here. That's kind of there's layers of these mysteries at Mass. There are the obvious ones, and there are the not so obvious ones. It's kind of like the skin on an onion. You peel it off, and there's another skin. You peel it off, there's another skin. You peel it off, there's another skin. It's the same thing at Mass. One of the names of Holy Mass is Sacred Mysteries, precisely because it is a mystery wrapped in mysteries. God is all about that. So we have God, but we can't understand God, so we realize that it's God, three persons in this one God. God has a quality, but there's no way we can wrap our head around this quality of God. So we pull it apart. We split it up, and every little division that we split it up into is infinite. So God is infinite wisdom. God knows all things. God is all strong. God is indestructible. God is... So when we describe these qualities of God, we use two terms. We use the word all before it, like all-powerful, almighty, all-knowledge, or we use the word, we preface the word with infinite, immutable. Yeah. In other words, we don't have words to describe these things about God. So we have to extreme it to the total extreme. It's either absolutely lacking or far beyond our comprehension of length. And each one of these qualities of God is torn apart by us so that we can understand that one quality of God which encompasses everything. So God is merciful and just at the same time. God is everywhere at the same time, and yet individually in each place at the same time, and so on. This is kind of how God works. And so when we come to Mass, we see these layers. You come into Mass and you're struck with something like this. And that is because there are major mysteries that you see right away. The priest is not facing you. What is he doing out there? It's silent in here. When it's silent, you know something's going on. Something important is happening. It's in a language I don't understand. Okay, he's not talking to me. He's talking to someone who I have no idea what he's saying. And then as you get familiar with that and the groundwork has been laid, okay, this is something very special going on, you start understanding more. Okay, there is, the altar server is picking up his chasuble and he's raising up the host. Or there's a drop of water being dropped into the chalice. And as you go along, you learn more and more and more. You're unpeeling the peel of the onion and learning more and more and more. However, the Mass itself is a mystery, so that you can come to understand it but you can never come to understand it perfectly. You can learn about it more and more and more. It's an interesting phenomenon, but this is kind of the setting of Holy Mass. So yes, the language is Latin, but the setting of Holy Mass teaches us a lot about what's going on, even though it's not the language we understand. You could take this a step further. And I could ask, suppose you were at the crucifixion. What sort of music would you be listening to there? Would it be Gregorian chant or would it be rock music? Weeping, tears.
Anguish,
Uh-huh.
wailing.
Would it be a celebration or would it be a very solemn moment?
Very, very solemn.
Very solemn. What posture would you be in?
Kneeling.
Probably kneeling, right? Would you be talking a lot or would you be crying?
I don't think we have time to talk.
No.
Beating of the breasts.
Beating of your breast, exactly. If you think about it, a lot of the stuff of the ambience or the ambience of Holy Mass is very similar to what it would have been at Calvary. It's very similar, and there's no coincidence there because it's the same sacrifice. So it falls to reason that if it is the same sacrifice, there would be that same atmosphere. And you could take it a step further. You could go to the Last Supper and you could ask, what sort of music would you be listening to there? What would the atmosphere be like? Would you be joking around? Would it be a celebration? Would it be a recollected atmosphere? Would you be talking on your side of the table, or would you rather be paying attention to what our Lord is saying in His last talk? And you get that feeling when you read the Gospel, and you read what actually happened in that Last Supper. The apostles had no idea what was going on. They thought, hey, our Lord is going to go start the kingdom of the Jews now, or something like that. They had no idea what was going on. However, they were not joking around. They were very solemn. They were very recollected. And our Lord spoke a lot. And what He said was a form of prayer. So you read all that into the Last Supper. So it's all about the atmosphere, teaching us that there's something very solemn going on, and that when it comes down to it, sacrifice is being offered to God.